What would you do? What do HIV, race for mayor, Blackish, your friends, Ebola, and 34 kids have in common? Well, they're all hot topics, and they're all right here, right now, on Lori and Cher.
Welcome to the Lori and Cher Show, Hacking into Awesome. I'm Lori Williamson.
And I'm Cher Jones.
And if you don't know, Cher and I are cousins, and we host this weekly Google Plus Hangout where we talk to absolutely amazing people and literally hack in to what makes them awesome.
That's right, Miss Lori Williamson, and you know that we have a lot of hot topics tonight. And for everybody who is out there on the internet, we want you to, of course you're on the internet because you're watching this show, right? We're not on TV, we're on the interwebs. So we want to make sure that you are connecting with us live, and you can get social with us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, YouTube, and Google+. We are pretty much everywhere, and you can hit us up at Lori and Cher. And of course, if you are tweeting with us tonight, because we're going to be talking about some hot topics, you can make sure you are using this hashtag Lori and Cher, and we will find you. And if you're watching this on the Google Plus page, we are open and ready for your questions and your comments because we want you to weigh in on everything that we're talking about.
Absolutely, Cher. We're excited. We have a whole panel of awesome guests that are going to be joining us, weighing in on the hot topics that you and I have kind of discussed. We said, you know what, this is what the internet is buzzing about, so let's get to it. I wanted to introduce our panel for tonight. First of all, we have Sasha Ann Simons. She is a radio and TV journalist and blogger at Simon Says, so make sure you guys go and check her out. And we then have our associate producer, Adriel Smiley. He's normally on Twitter, so be easy if we're not on Twitter as much tonight, but he's joining us and weighing in Hot Topics. And then all the way from Washington, D.C., I am so super excited because she's making her debut tonight on the Lori and Cher Show. We have Allyson, and she's a super fabulous leadership coach, coaching on life and leadership strategies from the heart. So welcome to the Lori and Cher Show, Allyson, Adriel, and Sasha Ann.
Woo!
Thank you
for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Okay, so guys, we're going to jump into it. The first topic tonight is a couple weeks ago we featured this lady's story. Her name is Gladys, otherwise known as Jizzy, and it was a story of how she is HIV positive, and it's her story, her personal story on how she contracted HIV. And we received a lot of feedback from this show. I wanted to shout out a couple of people. Rona Barry Morin, when she was watching the show, she says, "Good for you, Jizzy." You know, the way that Jizzy had, contracted the disease. She says, "Don't waste your time on hate." Christelle Campos says, "You are saving lives. Do not stop." By sharing her story. But I wanted to get you guys' feedback because we also got, some other perspectives, and Cher and I have been emailed countless times where other people have been telling us their story on how they got the disease or their experience with the disease. So I want to see what you guys thought, if you guys watched the show, and what your feedback was on this woman's story. Does it matter? Did it touch you? What are you thinking, guys?
It scared me, to be honest. First of all, when you guys were promoting it, and I heard what the topic was going to be, and just knowing, Jizzy's boyfriend gave her HIV, what would you do? Like that alone, was kind of terrifying because, it could be any of us. And when I watched the show, Cher just, she brought up a great point to me in that show, and it's kind of what I think is the bottom line here. And that's, once you're in a relationship or you have a steady monogamous partner, you're caught up in the moment, it starts to become more difficult to default to automatically grabbing that condom before you get started. And, everyone knows it, everyone's been there, and so it just feels like it could have been any one of us that something like that could have happened to, and that's the part that kills me, as someone who's still single and not, married, who's possibly still going to be dating in the future. I'm just terrified of everybody now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust as easily.
I think it's about asking the question, right? I think so many women are afraid to ask the question. When you're in a relationship, you need to ask questions. You need to say, let's go get tested. You know, if you are opening yourself up to somebody, that's something that can impact you for a very long time. There's actually a case here in Virginia where a man has been charged with attempting to spread HIV to a woman he met in a bar. So he went to a bar, hooked up with a woman over the weekend, had sex at least 7 or 8 times over the weekend, and she found out that he had HIV. And he's actually being charged for that. And I think it's time for women to start asking him the questions, you know, because why I can't be with you unless we can be honest and have free flow of a conversation. And that includes let's go to the doctor together. Let's see some test results. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Responsibility goes both ways.
I just think her positivity was amazing. The fact that all that has happened to her and it could happen to any of us, and it's such a bad thing to happen to anyone, but through it all she's still so positive. She's not like wishing ill against him. She wants him to come to justice, but she's still so positive about everything. She's just an inspiration to everyone.
What I found really interesting about this story is that not only does she have the haters, but she also has people who legitimately disagree with her claims. And that is something that she's going to have to deal with. That's something she's going to have to wrestle with. And we have to respect that we've heard her side, which is fantastic, and the work that she's doing as far as trying to get this story told. And the fact that we're talking about this right now, the fact that it does affect us in one way or another, it's something that we all have to continue thinking about. But there's been so many angles brought to light as a result of this that Lori and I are going to be doing another show down the road on HIV and bring in different angles and bring in different viewpoints, because a lot of people think that criminalizing HIV is also an issue because it's just another way. Well, we see this one, oh my gosh, if this ever happened to me, but sometimes people are being wrongly accused for giving HIV to somebody else and then going to jail for it when we don't know what happened in the bedroom. We don't know the conversations that happened before that as well. So it's a slippery slope, and it's something that these are the discussions that we want to entertain on our show. I mean, this is not, a show about exclusive to this topic, but it certainly needs to be talked about some more, and that's why we're even bringing it up tonight. So, yeah, I mean, it gave me so much to think about. As someone who is in a monogamous relationship for over 14 years, I mean, or coming up on that now, it's something that I'm thinking, well, just for the sake of being tested, me and my husband, we should be tested on a regular basis, like the same way you do other blood work as just a part of it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts for now.
No, absolutely, Cher. I think what's one of the things that we absolutely heard is that we are getting emails from a lot of people that are like, they want to share their side of the story, opposing views, and that was something that kind of really opened up this whole topic for Cher and I. Because, you know, one thing that we do feel is that HIV/AIDS has become a lost topic. It's not something that we talk about. We talk about, cancer, ALS, and a lot of other kind of ailments that, can happen to people, and all awful, and not to say that HIV trumps everything else. But, I mean, I think one thing that is very important that we have to and we cannot forget are the stats that affect in particular African American women, Hispanic women in particular. That's something that we cannot ignore, and it's something that we as a community and as communities have to make sure that we know the facts, and that, as much as you can have that conversation, it's very easy for someone to lie to you. And it's about making smart decisions and actually understanding that the decision you make one decision can ultimately change the rest of your life. So, you know what, we definitely look forward to having more discussions on it. And you know what, in this discussion, I think that, and hopefully we're educating not only ourselves, but we're educating anyone who's watching, the show and stuff like that. But it was definitely an eye-opening discussion.
I mean, and not so much in Jizzy's situation, but like, what if, like we talk about it in a criminalizing way, but what if the person your partner wasn't, lying to you, or had no idea that they had contracted, the illness and passed it to you? I mean, and then it goes back to the same discussion. It's having the conversation, right? And being open as partners. But there are those instances too where it's not someone not like what the case that Allyson had brought up, where someone is deliberately, and we know for sure, going out trying to infect people. But what about that innocent, relationship that you thought was monogamous, and the person ended up just passing it on to you? I mean, what do you do?
Absolutely. And then also you have to think about there are a ton of people out there that can have the disease, and I mean love is a very strong thing. So, you know, like you think about like Magic Johnson and his wife Cookie, you know, she could have made the decision to leave that situation, whether in a monogamous or you meet someone. It's a decision that you have to kind of educate yourself about. So as much as we talk about it as though like it's such a deal breaker if, you know, you meet someone and they have HIV, to most people and us just saying it out there, you'd say, oh, absolutely, maybe that's what it would be. But you never know. You know, and people may make the decisions to knowingly be like, you know what, love trumps this, and you know that, you know, there's been a lot of advancements in HIV, and maybe it's a decision that someone makes at that time to, you know, become involved with someone. You know, of course, they risk, you know, being infected themselves, and then, you know, maybe that relationship doesn't work out, and so I think there is. You know, it's not as cut and dry, and it's not as, you know, I think sometimes there's definitely stories that we hear all the time where it is intentional and it was someone who was looking to, you know, seek revenge, who's angry about their situation. But I think that there also is a lot more other sides to the story, which I don't know that we'll ever be able to really shed light on all of it and really get to be able to really understand everyone's angles. But glad that we're talking about it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, HIV does not have a face, right? And as you said, it's something that's been pushed back to the side, but it's really about pushing back past your fear about being in a relationship. Oftentimes people don't want to have the conversations because they're afraid that they're going to lose out on something. Mm-hmm. And it's really about taking a stand for yourself and your life, and that comes first. And everything else will fall into place. If you're in a truthfully loving a relationship where you honor one another, if something like this comes up, then you work with one another in that situation. But it's about people taking a stand for themselves and recognizing that it's okay if I'm not in a relationship because this has shown up. Or it's okay for me to take a stand for what's really important to me. And at the end of the day, it's a life and death situation. So we have to take it really seriously.
Absolutely. Carmen Rojas, she's just coming on Twitter, and she just said that the show with Jizzy was epic. Such an important topic that has to be discussed. So we appreciate you piping in there. But let's move on to another topic that we wanted to talk about tonight. It is the race for mayor in Toronto.
It sure is.
It's literally, what is it, less than a week away before the polls just opened, the advanced polls just opened, today. And we have John Tory, Olivia Chow, and Doug Ford now vying for the mayor of Toronto position. We, of course, know that Rob Ford, the longtime mayor of the city, quite controversial, is suffering with... is in hospital receiving chemotherapy. I don't know if he's out yet, but he does have cancer. So these are the three people at the forefront of the race. What are your thoughts, Sasha? I know that you have worked, you know, in the political arena. What are your thoughts on how this is all going to play out?
Honestly, my immediate thought is, thank God I don't live in Toronto anymore.
That's how I feel.
I was like, that decision I made 1 year ago last week to move to the suburbs, that's what we could have done that. You know, this is just, it's one of those races where like any number can play. Is, you know, it's not like my mom when I say that, but anything can happen. I don't trust any of them. Doug, mess. Olivia, hot mess.
I don't connect with her.
I don't believe you. It's just, it's such a freaking... can I say freaking? It's
yes,
just
you could say freaking.
Freak
on, girl.
I'm glad I don't have to partake. I don't have to get a ballot out, and I just wish the rest of my family well on this tough decision.
I'd like to weigh in.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that I used to struggle with keeping my Canadian citizenship, but I think I'm going to become an American citizen in the next year or so because I am embarrassed to be a Canadian in America with the madness that goes on with the Toronto elections, and I'm going to leave it there.
Oh, come on. Have you watched American politics? Your attack ads are just horrible.
You guys make fun of all of our politicians here, but at least we get rid of them and they come back up. I mean, these people are still standing. I just can't believe it.
They're still standing. They're still standing because of people like my mom. She loves.
Yeah.
Oh boy, you can't. Nobody can say anything about my mom's Robbie. And I know she's watching. Mommy.
It's funny because that's one of the things that we know that the Ford family is known for, is for having the minority vote. And I know that, like, you know, having family from Jamaica, I know that, like, I don't know if this is for you, Sasha, and Adriel, I don't know, because Alice, I know you're not Jamaican, right?
I'm not, but I heard him speaking patois in that clip, and I just had to shake my head. I had to shake my head.
But I know that back in the day, people in Jamaica never announced who they were voting for. It was going to cause, like, a lot of uproar. So it's funny because I was, like, you know, in a neighborhood, I know where some Jamaican families lived, and they were proudly had the Rob Ford sign. And
that's new.
Like,
that is new. Don't put your business on the streets.
Yeah, exactly. And I was kind of surprised because I was like, that's a big move from a Jamaican family for them to announce that they're backing someone, especially someone so controversial. And I mean,
I have family in New York that can't come close to voting, and they're Rob Ford supporters. I'm like, what do you even know about this?
People love him. People love him.
Each of his little antics, I'm getting texts on my phone like, yeah, that's our boy, and I'm like, really?
This is, you know, my
people
problem,
love him.
My problem with Rob Ford is, you know, it's probably not so much about his politics. It's really about, you know, I know that John Tory, they were talking about white privilege and stuff like that, but for me, I think what really is, and I don't know if it's fair, but I mean, everyone has their own beliefs why they like someone, don't like someone. But my problem is if I was working in a job and I was doing half of what, I did a pinky of what Rob Ford has done, you know, lying, coming in drunk, doing drugs.
How about crack? How about the crack?
Using company resources, calling children that he's, you know, mentoring, you know, derogatory terms. I do not believe for 1 second, not even a blink of the eye, that I would be given a second chance. And I think that is really what upsets me the most about Rob Ford, is the privilege that he has received in the city, and that people are so quick to, you know, oh, it's okay that he did that, that's okay. But I bet you if it was someone else that maybe looked like me, maybe male that looks like me, that would not have gone on. And that's the stuff that really kind of upsets me about society and in this current day, is that, you know, I don't believe that a minority would be given that opportunity for a 15th or 50th chance, not even a second chance.
Absolutely. I think they should at least pretend. Get rid of him, pretend, and then bring him back. That's what we do in America. Just, you know, go through the motions, but to have him still sitting up there, I'm going to become an American citizen. Seriously. It makes no sense.
Adriel, what do you think?
I can't even understand for a second why everyone loves him so much. I was in church like last month, and the pastor said something about Rob Ford.
I'm sorry.
And all these older black women started cheering as if they were giving away free money. And the pastor just said, let's pray for Rob Ford, and everyone started cheering. And I said, are you guys cheering on purpose? Did you not hear what he said? But everyone was going crazy. I have no clue. I don't even know what he does that everyone likes. Like, I don't get it. I'm so confused.
From my understanding,
people that will fight hard, like, oh, but he's done, you know, forget about his personal and forget about all that, you know, it's all about what he's done for the city. And I'm like,
he's embarrassed us.
He got rid of that one fee, you know, when you go renew your license or whatever, that one.
And the city needs that money.
$70.
You know what, though? Like, this is one thing I say. Like, from a real estate perspective, I sell real estate. I am, I guess, the only person on the panel who will be voting because I live in the city of Toronto proper. And the one thing that I know that Rob Ford has been a supporter of is abolishing the land transfer tax. Not a couple of years ago, but back I think in 2000 and I can't remember, 8, they introduced the Toronto municipal land transfer tax. So in Toronto, you have to pay both the Toronto land transfer tax and the provincial land transfer tax. And as you know, working with first-time buyers or people that are looking to move up, it's a significant cost to them. And that's like the one thing that I really feel like, you know what, I really appreciate that they were trying to get away with that, because David Miller, I believe, is the one who introduced that into the city. And I know that if John Tory wins, I'm sure it's probably going to get raised. So I feel bad for that. And that's like the one thing why I would support Rob Ford is just for that one fact. It's just because I see the impact that it does have on families when it comes time to move into a bigger house or even getting into the market. But other than that, I just can't vie for that business of his behavior.
I see a lot of people blaming the media too. Like, I mean, the Rob Ford supporters saying, you know, it's the media. You know, we're the ones antagonizing him, and
yeah, we're the ones who gave him crack.
And he's not getting his privacy. And of course, if we dig and we dig and we dig, obviously we're going to find something. But you know,
the media doesn't take the water.
Dusting off the top dirt to find something, then yes, we're digging. We're just dusting, just a light dusting.
But we did find something, and people are forgetting.
Exactly. And discovery. I just wanted to shout out Political Jones, one of our favorite friends on Twitter. He's shouting us out early, and we appreciate you tweeting with us and sharing the show as well. We want to remember and remind you guys that if you want to join in with your conversation about Jizzy or about Rob Ford or the Toronto elections, you can always jump into the conversation at any time using hashtag Lori and Cher.
All right, so let's move on to something else. You know, Fall TV is back, thank goodness. Scandal's on and all our favorite shows. And
Walking Dead.
Yes, Walking Dead and all that kind of foolishness. But anywho, one of the new shows that debuted on City TV here in Canada, as well as ABC in the States, was this new show by Anthony Anderson called Blackish. It stars Tracee Ellis Ross, and it really is about a family who, you know, is falling out of touch with their roots. Now, has anyone seen the show before?
Yes.
I've
Adriel,
seen
what do you
it,
think?
yes.
I don't mind it. It's supposed to be funny, but it's not funny, so that's the first thing. It's like sold as a comedy, but it's not funny. But it seems to be a smart show, and they try to like deal with the issues and actually speak to them instead of running away from these issues that other shows would. But it's not executed well. So I appreciate the effort that they're trying to be an intelligent show and trying to touch on some of these issues, but I don't think it's executed well.
Okay.
Really, I find it funny.
Me too. I find it
Really?
I really
You know what?
do.
I saw the commercials, like, you know, the ads before it actually began, and I thought, oh God, this one's it's not gonna make it past like 2 episodes. But once it actually began, like, I actually found it funny. I actually chuckled during the show, but maybe that's just me.
I think it's just a chuckle. I think the chuckle is as far as it goes. There's no belly laughs, just the chuckle.
Yeah, there's no belly laughs, but I mean, it's like a good, like, like, you know, it's good enough. But, you know, like, as far as people, you know, going off and talking about it being racist, as, you know, Donald Trump at it again, you know.
Yeah, the black people are racist.
Yes, talking about us, you know, being racist. You know, maybe at times racially insensitive.
Yes.
But not racist. Like, I mean, I don't think Trump has looked up the definition of racist or what racism really means, but, like, it's just being so misused these days. Like, you know, racist, it's like a racist person is a person who, if you think, you know, they hold the belief that, like, one's race is superior to another, or, you know, or superior to all others, and that's not what this show is portraying at all. I think that the term is just being used very carelessly and incorrectly. And I'm sorry, I find some of the jokes just funny. I just love Tracee Ellis Ross, so she can do no wrong for me.
I know.
Big Tracee Ross fan. She's the reason I watch.
Yeah, you know, I honestly, I think it's the stuff that we talk about anyway. So it's just funny to put it. And then, you know, he talked about, oh, well, what if we put out a show out there called Whitish? Like, that was Friends.
That's 99%.
Seinfeld?
Like, you know what I mean? Like, Heaven, Party of Five.
Yeah.
Every show.
All we got is Cosby. Like, people are still comparing it to Cosby because, like, that's all we have, you know?
Yeah. I mean, so Blackish may not be the best name, but I'm sorry, it's just
I totally identify with it. Honestly, guys, I completely, when I'm watching the show, some of it's a bit off-color, dare I say that, but I found that I totally identified with it, especially having a son, or two sons, growing up in an area where there is not a lot of black people in general. So having these discussions, talking about the nod, the brother nod, I've had those discussions. I totally identified with it from not only just being funny, but actually being real life. I've had those discussions before. So I think the show's hilarious. I can see the insensitivities, but when is comedy not insensitive? There's no one says anything about Glee. With certain characters having the permission space to say what they say, specifically Sue, the character Sue on Glee, she could say whatever she wants, and clearly she can do no wrong, and it's not insensitive. But all of a sudden, you have this racially charged title, and now it's an issue. But honestly, I sat there and I identified, especially from someone who came from middle class neighborhood and whatnot, where I wasn't surrounded by I was surrounded by totally different cultures than black, although I totally identify black. But that being said, it was just these are the conversations we have. So I love it. Allyson, what about you?
Cher, I'm with you on this one. I mean, I was turned off a little bit when I heard the title, and then I watched the show, and I think they're real issues. I mean, it's almost like we have a lot of class issues that occur here in America. And, when people start off from nothing and then they end up going to move to the suburbs and they're paying private school tuitions for their kids, and their children land into these schools where they're the only black child and there's no connection to who they were before. These are real conversations. And I have friends in this situation where they're Caribbean and their kids are here and their kids don't even know what Dashin is, or what plantain is anymore, because they're in these schools and they're not exposed to it. And I think that, there are some corny jokes, yes, granted, but, most of the shows on TV are whitish, and Donald Trump needs to get a grip, needs to get over himself with this, because at the end of the day, these are true issues that we need to talk about. And I have to actually applaud Anthony for putting on a show like this that speaks to these issues. I've started from the bottom. Now I'm here, right? And, I've got these kids, and I want them to know who they are. And, I watched one of the episodes where one of the kids, he was like, you don't even know who the first black president is. And the reality is, she said, Obama's the only president that I know. So we have to keep reinforcing where people have come from, the history that we have, and it's in school, it's not happening. And their peer group are watching rap videos, and that's black culture. So, I give them a thumbs up. I give them what do they call it? What do they call this? A bump or whatever they call it. We didn't used to call that when we were growing up, whatever that is. But I think it's a good show. And I think that he needs to keep going on with it. So, yeah, I agree. And Donald needs to take it someplace else. Honestly.
But, one of the things I think is this is very on trend. Look at the movie that's about to come out called Dear White People.
I can't wait.
Look at what's happening on BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed has poked fun at so many different, they've created all these different satires on, if a white person, if a black person said the things that a white person did, or if an Asian person said the things that, and it's not to pick on, this isn't about a discussion about picking on a race in particular, because let's just be honest, within everyone's ethnic groups, we all make fun. I will poke a fun. I was watching Chelsea Handler. My friend posted it on his wall, and it was her Uganda me crazy, or you gotta be kidding me. And the first joke in this trailer was I was like, oh my gosh, she just went there. She went there with this, quite this joke about going to Africa and her friend being very nervous about whether or not they were going to be raped. And Chelsea Handler was like, well, we're not going to get raped in the first day. They're going to at least wait a couple of days before they rape us. But, it was just kind of this off-color comedy that I think all races do for each person. There's stereotypes and stuff like that. And I think, I think it's just very on trend that people are able to talk about different races the way they are.
Well, clearly we are all on trend and all kind of good with it, except for Adriel, who just really liked the show.
I think it's really smart. I just don't think it's as funny as it can be.
Really?
Not
Come
even
on,
like,
Adriel.
No,
Honestly,
I get a chuckle, but it's not as funny as it can be.
I get a
when Anthony
chuckle.
took his shirt
I
off,
love
you
it.
were dying.
I,
Having the talk. That was so funny. And when
that was pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
daughter was trying to talk to Tracy, about the problems going on in her life, and then Tracy kept going off into these little, thoughts and just, self-congratulating herself and
But that's me loving Tracy. If Tracy was a newspaper for half an hour, I would love it anyways.
Okay, well, let's move on to our next topic. As we are dealing with, a lot of you guys are entrepreneurs, you're doing your thing. Like, we have a lot of people in our fan base and who talk to us and share what they do. They are, doing their thing. They're putting themselves out there socially. And a couple weeks ago, I wrote an article after doing a talk, or after being a part of a panel at the Side Hustler event put on by Siobhan John. Awesome event. And we were talking about not getting the support from your friends. So I wrote this article, your friends are not your fans, and that's okay. So we've had a lot of great discussion about this, just simply because we're dealing with the fact that when we put ourselves out there, we want our friends to like everything we do. We want our friends to support us and, share our stuff. And I'm sure they do in their own way, but it's not their obligation to do so. But what I want to know from you guys is, how has that made you feel, knowing that when you're putting your stuff out there and sometimes your friends support you, sometimes they don't? How has that made you feel? Anyone?
Well, Cher, I've read your article. And I don't know about your friends, but my friends support me. I just thought I'd throw that out there. No.
All my friends are noticed because of you.
No, but
I love
quite
it.
honestly, I read your article, and I actually have to agree. Like, I feel as though I remember there were times where I tried to launch parts of my business, and people I thought would support me, I automatically crickets, didn't hear anything from them. And I realized that, it's really not about them. And it's really about me and what I want to do for myself. And I think oftentimes when having that conversation, our friends are trying to protect us, and sometimes they're projecting their fears outwardly. Maybe I'm sounding a little bit too nice with this, but they're projecting their fears as well. Or there might be issues of jealousy, or did she really do this, or is she really going there? And the reality is, if we get caught up in that, we're never going to push past our dreams and push for what we want. So it's really about taking a stand and honing into the confidence and surrounding yourself with people that are like you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to, just show you need to elevate who you are and start surrounding yourself with people that are more supportive. And I think that's the lesson. I think with everything that we have a level of grace, and there's a lesson to be learned in every action that we put out there. And instead of basking in the negativity of someone not supporting us, hold on to the hand of the person that's pulling us up. So the reality is, it goes both ways. I'm very grateful and thankful for my friends and those outside of my circle that do support me. But for those haters, they can hate because, I'm elevating, right? That sounds a little corny, but that's just the reality of the situation. It's time for us to kind of step up out of our comfort zone and surround ourselves with people who will love us, support us, and die for us as we would for them going forward. So, but good article. It did resonate with me when I read it.
I mean, but that's easy to say, like, surround yourself with people who would be supportive. But, like, what do you do when it's, like, a longtime friend? Like, a friend that you grew up with, went to school with. You just automatically, or at least I do, I automatically assume that that person is going to love every single thing that I do, just as I will love and support every single thing he does. But, I quickly found out that that wasn't the case. I have a very, very close friend who I don't think has even once clicked on a link to my blog yet. Not once. And it used to bug me. I used to take it personal. I used to think, at least read one post, damn, But, I've since come to, it kind of goes back to what Allyson was saying. I've since come to realize that, it's okay, and I started to think about it a bit more. Like, maybe my blog didn't focus on some of the things that she's interested in or, can relate to. She's not a mom. She doesn't work in the corporate world or work in TV, so I'm like, okay, maybe that's it. Maybe she just doesn't connect with it exactly, but she, supports me from afar. But then I just really started to channel my focus on the people that were supporting me. I had my regulars that were commenting, that were liking, that were sharing, that were subscribing, and really paying attention and coming back and telling me how they can relate to stories. Oh, thanks for talking about that. Oh, I really like your writing. Oh, and congratulating me. And those people are who I write for, and those people are who I focus on. And I don't hold a grudge against my friend anymore. I've lifted that weight off my shoulders, healed my heart, not taking it personal anymore. I get it, girl. But I'm still going to support you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just feel indifferent. I think it's kind of the same thing where if you have a friend who's really good at sports, like I have friends who are amazing at sports and they've been like Team Canada athletes, and to me they're just my friend, and I've always known them as amazing athletes. So I'm not thinking of them as this athlete all the time. Only when things come up, I'm like, oh yeah, you're amazing at this. So I think that's kind of how our friends look at how we do our thing. They're not always thinking of us as the blogger or the leader. They're thinking of you as just their friend, and then you happen to do this like it's another job. So I've always been indifferent because that's how I look at some of my friends who are exceptional at what they do, and it doesn't resonate to me that's what they do. I think of them as a friend first.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to do before we continue, I just want to give a quick shout out to Rona Barry-Morin, who's just like going crazy on our YouTube page. I just saw all your comments. Now, we are loving the fact that you are getting engaged and engaged with the show, and we just want to shout you out while we're talking about this, and continue to keep the comments going, especially if you had that experience where you found out that your friends are not your fans in one way or another. But
yeah, you know what? This is something that I feel like I learned back in 2008 when I got my real estate license. One of the things that they teach us all the time when you start in real estate is go tell your family and your friends that they are, that you're in real estate and they're going to use you because they love you and they want to support you and everything. And it was a very hard lesson for me to realize that some of the closest people that I know aren't going to use my services, whether for whatever reason that is, and I guess that is everyone's right. And it was hard. I took it to heart. I took it personally because I was like, what I'm doing, I'm looking for people to support what I'm doing. And it's when I look back and I'm like, man, I've supported you during these things and that things, and I know that I put myself out there for definitely a lot of different times. And it was definitely something. It took me a long time not to take it personal when they were like, oh, hey, asking me for advice on things and then, not using me. So I sometimes say that, strangers are kind of my best friends because that's often who supports my business. They see value in what I do. And just like Sasha, how you said that, you no longer kind of begrudge your friend for, not using you, supporting you, in your endeavors with writing. I kind of feel the same way as well. I've gotten past that, and I no longer really look to my friends to support me. So I know that when Cher and I started this show, and it was interesting, the people who came out and said, oh my God, like that's so awesome, and then other people were like, as you said, cricket. And I don't take it personal anymore. I'm just kind of like, yeah, like everyone's doing their own thing, and like it is what it is, I guess, at this point. But it was definitely a tough lesson for me to learn ever since I became an entrepreneur. So.
Can I add to that, Laura? Do you mind?
Yeah.
What I want to add is when you give, right? And this is what I teach people. When you give, there shouldn't be an expectation of receiving in that gift. So when you go out, or when I go out and support other people, call it crazy, call it something different, but I don't give with the expectation to receive. And I think when we start to recognize that people are who they are and they are who they aren't, and we have to let go of the outcome when we do something, and I'm not saying lower our expectations, but if I'm going to stand in giving my support to you, I shouldn't feel a way if you're not responding in that way. And I think we have to sometimes push past ourselves and just be real. The whole purpose of life, it's karma, it's energy, right? So you receive blessings from people who don't even realize are blessing you in return. So, I always share with the clients that I coach, when you're giving without the expectation. Just let go of the outcome, and then whatever you receive is what you receive. And that's what I stand in when I speak about, not in a position of judgment, but you know what? Yeah, we have these expectations sometimes that aren't there are expectations that we create for ourselves, so we shouldn't have it with other people. So I understand you take it personally, and I understand, but when we get past that, we're giving, and that's it. And whatever we receive is the added bonus. So it's a great thing that other people support us, other than the people that we have in that circle that we have these expectations around.
I can definitely, I can understand that perspective and stuff like that, and it's something, for me, and I know Cher knows, I've talked to her several times about, these types of situations before as I was building my business, and I think it was for me, like for my particular situation, it really came down to, the coaching that I was getting was, these are the people that you're going to turn to because these are the people that trust you, and I feel like, you are hoping that people are going to support you in whatever endeavors that you are going to do, and it's not because you're looking for tit for tat, like I give you this, I'm looking for you to do that, but it's kind of hard as well is if you're constantly supporting other people, and it's not, as I said, it's not about you're constantly giving to someone else, but if you're constantly supporting other people, at one point in your life, you are going to realize, like, listen, at the end of the day, you're not supporting what I'm doing, I'm going to find it very hard at one point to start to support what you're doing, if it's not a mutualistic relationship. And I guess that's all that I have on that.
I think when we're going into these endeavors too, like when we're going into these endeavors, like, we're extremely, it's our baby, right? And we're extremely sensitive when it comes to these things, these projects, these endeavors that we're these businesses that we're opening up, these ideas. We think it's the greatest thing ever, and so the slightest, comment or what have you is going to throw us off. I mean, I had, personally, a friendship of, many, many years pretty much end over, something like this your friends are not your fans thing, and I was supporting my friend. She went out on her own and on a new endeavor, opened up a new business, quit her job, was very supportive. I, at the grand opening, supportive as a client, repeated times, posting on social media, my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook. And one day, happened to be using one of the products, made a small, what I thought was constructive critique, and boy, did that backlash. I mean, one little sentence, and it was, and needless to say, that was 3 months ago, and we haven't spoken since. And so it leads me to believe, like, did you not see all of the things that I was right by your side at leading up to this point? Like, why would you think that I was trying to hate or, going against you in any way? Like, I was there all along when, some other people weren't. And so that, to me, I'm like, okay, well, this has to be over something else, and I've chalked it up to that. I'm like, this has to be a deeper issue, because it cannot just be over the one constructive, as I believed it was, constructive comment that I made to help you grow, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's to help you grow. Like, I want you to win. What's it going to do for me if you don't win? I want me to win. I want you to win. So, she didn't quite see it that way, and so what can I do? I'm forced to just let her go. So.
And that's just it. I mean, for those of you who are just tuning in right now, we are talking about what it feels like when your friends are not supporting you and your business, specifically online, especially now as we have that social setting where we can support with a like, we can support with a comment, we can support with a share. And sometimes it's your expectations. You have to reset them from your friends not supporting you. And it is something, Sash, I can totally identify with what you were saying about, like, you've been out there, you've been posting, and it's not even like Lori said in the whole tit for tat thing. I'm not supporting you so you can support me. But I find it sometimes very shocking and almost like really? It's like you didn't notice when I was supporting you, and it's not in the same way, but especially when you know that you're doing something cool or you're doing something awesome. And I mean, specifically, one of my experience through this is with the show and just sharing that with people who I thought would even just appreciate the effort and appreciate the time and appreciate the energy that we've put into this show to make it what it is today, and we're all learning, and it's new technology and all that stuff, but not receiving that support, it was hurtful, and I had to deal with it and get over it, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote that article. You know, like, not everybody's going to support you. Some people are going to hate on you. Some people don't even see your stuff, or some people don't want to support you socially because when they like something or comment on something, they're going to be hit with a slew of comments and notifications that they just can't handle. So it's just one of those things that, you know, there's so many different factors to weigh in, but I know that I find it always odd when I will meet somebody on the street who has never supported me, and then they'll be like, oh, how's the show going? And like, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know you knew that we had a show because of this and that. And I know it sounds like I'm ranting and raving, but I am over it. And that article really was me, the last straw of me getting over it. But it was something that I had a hard time dealing with. And the amount of people that responded to me and this article, specifically on LinkedIn, and what was interesting is everybody sort of had the same sort of experience that, yeah, some of their friends are not going to support them, and that's okay, and you have to get over it, and it is what it is. So
yeah, and just like you share, I'm over it too. You know, yeah. I just wanted to tell the story, but like, I'm over it, and I still support her. I support her from a distance. I wish her nothing but the best. Nothing but the best.
I think sometimes we just have to examine what our expectations are and let go of the outcome. Because if we get stuck in that, you know, we continue to maintain ourselves getting stuck in that space. Yeah, it does hurt. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I am still a firm believer that when you support, you're making a choice, and you decide how you're going to respond to how somebody responds to you and what you do. So you're making that choice. So if you're making that choice to support somebody, you have to let go of the outcome.
But at the same time, okay, I'm going to take that on the other side of things. Someone's making a choice not to support me. And these are people that you would expect, and I recognize that, but then that's where you're dealing with the pain of that choice from the other end.
Well, then you have to ask yourself where that pain is really coming from, right? So, I mean, I get it. I get where you're coming from. Like, what pain?
Right now, from the heart, that
the reality is you're reacting. You're the decider in your life, right? So you're reacting to how somebody responds to you. And the reality is, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect by any means, because I haven't been there, but the reality is that you're like, the personal piece is like, okay, so it's like, is something wrong with me? Why aren't they doing this for me? I've done things for them. And the reality is, they are the ones that make a decision to do what they want to do and do what they don't want to do.
Absolutely.
We have to be okay with that. And it's that being okay piece that we struggle with. So again, I just go back to the fact that, you know, we've all done work. I know we all have, and we've all let go of it. And this is a great forum to share the story. And for those who are listening, it's really about not sitting in that space and recognizing that people have the right to do whatever they want to do and respond the way they want to do has nothing to do with who you are. We are complete and whole. They can deal with their issues.
I agree with you, and I feel like we could go around on this on so many different levels, because I think that you're bringing a great perspective, which is don't get caught up in it. But at the same time, I feel like, I don't know if Sasha and Cher can agree with it, but I think you kind of want to step back and like maybe re-examine your friendship at times, because you're just like, this is me, and this is so tight with me, you know, so you kind of want to be like, well, what kind of friends do I have if this is not how they want to
Good question, Lori.
Right?
Good question.
And that's it, too. And I mean,
good question.
Political Jones, your friends take it for granted. They figure they got your back, and that's what he's saying. So, yeah, it's true. We just figure that they have our backs, but and they are taking it for granted. It's like, I think it's kind of like those things in a relationship. If you're not telling your partner that you love them, right? It's like, do you even know that they love you? Or that will they know that you love them, sort of thing? And you need to hear that. You need that acknowledgement and encouragement from people who, especially the inner circle. It's fine, the peripherals, but sometimes the inner circle, that hurts. But let's
call them on it.
I feel like I think it's like a topic that it's like you could see it from all the different angles, and sometimes people, as you said, like, I don't really believe that that people don't really see what you're doing. They know what they're doing. They're just putting on the blinders, and then, when it's convenient, I always feel like people will definitely applaud you when other people applaud you, and it's not that you do your work to be applauded, but it's like when you've made it, that's when everyone is going to be like, right there, right there.
They're like, it really is a big deal. Let me go check this out, and like, okay, where were you from the beginning? But whatever, over it.
We're not over it, folks. Let's just be honest. Say, oh yeah, we're over it.
We're dealing with it.
Tea.
Sips tea. But there's the next thing that we are. I don't know how anybody's going to deal with this. Ebola has landed. This is one of the most scariest, overblown things, but it's very scary at the same time, just as far as how it is actually contracted and especially within the States, it's very difficult to get this. However, everybody's in a state of panic. Everybody is stressed out over the fact that Ebola is here in North America. We'll ask our American friend first. Allyson, how are you feeling about this?
I'm cool. No. The reality is, right, that Ebola's been around since the 50s, and unfortunately, it's a disease that hits a specific population on a specific continent in a specific isolated area, and we don't give resources to Black people. Period. That's how I see it, right? If it was Viagra, we've got something to cure if somebody has an issue with having sex, so we throw money into those resources, but we're not throwing money into what really counts. And the reality is, Ebola has been around for years, right? And the reason why it's such a big thing in the States is because it's finally hit the borders over here. If you look at it from a pharmaceutical perspective, pharmaceutical companies put money or invest money into things that they get a good return on, and unfortunately, Ebola is not one of those things. Like a lot of viruses in Africa, it's not. There's no light that's shed on it. Oftentimes, people pass away from contracting Ebola because they don't have the resources. The reality is there is no real cure for it. When that doctor came over, he was able to sit in a hospital where there were resources, where he could have a blood transfusion, where there were machines to help him through that process. And it's like almost how HIV started. The light is not shown in that area until somebody from the first world, quote unquote, is impacted by that, and that's the unfortunate piece about this entire thing.
Well, I'm not worried at all.
No.
I don't touch people.
There you go. That's one way of protecting yourself. Just don't touch people.
Just don't touch people.
It's too much. It's too much. Like, it's 2014, and we now have a 24-hour media cycle. So this, as serious as it is, it's making it seem like it's 40 times more serious. So, and I've been trying to tell people Ebola did not just get created like 2 weeks ago. Ebola has been around for a long time.
Yeah, just like Allyson was saying.
I love all the people Instagramming like themselves in like face masks and with bags all over themselves. Like, it's not airborne. Did you read that part? Like.
But those same people don't wash their hands in the washroom, but that's none of my business.
Sip to it.
But it's just the media just makes this more than it has to be. Not that this is not serious, but again, the 24-hour media cycle, everything is so overdone. It's like how nothing can be in the middle. It's like, and every time you watch a TV show, it's the best show I've ever seen, or it's the worst show I've ever seen. The show just can't be good, and that's like how it is with this. No, we can't just be moderately aware. We have to be, you're going to die, or you don't care at all.
Lori, you've been uncharacteristically quiet.
She's sipping.
I'm sipping. You know me, Carmen Rojas. Shout out. Drinking my white wine. I don't know why no one else is joining me.
I know.
Yeah, you know what? To me, it's not something that I'm like really thinking about. I watched Vice News. I subscribed to their channel because they were doing like a 3-part series in Monrovia. Is that what the place was called? I mean, it was. I was like, wow, I could not imagine, like, you know, I live in Toronto, and if, like, you know, everyone was, like, going to the mall and, like, coming with bodies or going to the hospital with bodies and stuff like that, and they're being turned away and people dying. And I just feel like the reality is like, we don't care because we are here in North America, and, like, that's not an epidemic or plague that's really bothering us. But seeing it from the perspective of, you know, it happening and how those people are, like, saying, like, you know, people that are infected are coming into their communities and they're basically shunning them, saying, like, get away from here because we don't want you to touch something that we touch and that it gets, you know, transmitted or something like that. So I think the interesting perspective is, I mean, there's obviously a lot of conspiracy theories. A lot of people out there are saying that we're not really getting the real story. We're getting, you know, the North American view. We're not getting the view of, you know, from someone who's down there. And I think that's why, you know, CNN, Sanjay Gupta, Nancy Snyderman, who I think she's on a 21-day mandatory hold with NBC and the NBC News crew. But I think that it's interesting that they had someone who was infected with the disease who came home and then apparently no longer has Ebola. So I feel like there's some conspiracy theories as to, is there a vaccine that can, like, you know, cure this disease, and, you know, what is it that they're saying, or what is it that they're saying?
Here's the problem for me, though. I mean, I can easily, like the rest of them, jump into fear mode. Like, when you start to watch the stories of how it's not contained, because we live in such a sterile North American Western environment, and how things, you know, how people can leave their places, and you're looking at people, oh, they got turned away from the hospital because they have no more room in the hospital to handle what's going on. You come up with symptoms and they turn them back for their family to go take them home, and you know, there's rigorous screening from leaving any country that has been earmarked as an Ebola hotbed, if you will. But I mean, it's still scary. I mean, it's just one of those things that could jump off at any time. I recognize it's not airborne. Like, I think SARS was airborne, and swine flu, which I ended up with swine flu and was sick for 12 days. But I mean, this stuff is scary.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, yeah. This stuff is scary.
How did you get that?
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, like 2010.
Like, you still have it, though. We're like,
I know, right?
Catch it now.
We're all gonna catch you to the hangout.
You're not coming back over here. You're going to come over there.
I'm coming over. I'm going over tomorrow. What are you talking about?
I don't remember us ever talking about you having swine flu. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just scary.
Do tell.
I think it warrants a conversation, and I think, Cher, all of you are all on the same, we're pretty much all on the same page. I think that there needs to be real information that's put out there.
Yes.
And the reality, I feel, is we're living in America. It turns into like a black-white thing, right? So this gentleman who died in Texas, who was an American citizen, is now being reported as somebody who from Liberia. So they forgot he was American all of a sudden because he's the other. He's from the continent of Africa, and he's brought this disease into the country. And it, you know, there's a ripple effect. People who used to sit beside him at work don't want to sit there anymore. It turned, and especially in a state like Texas, I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you're looking at, it turns into something where it's us against them. And let's just be real about what it is, right? The reality is the disease has been around for a very long time. No one's ever really done anything about it. It's not impacting the people that if it was impacting Donald Trump, there'd be a cure, right? That's just the reality of the situation. So let's communicate things effectively. Let's train people accordingly. And let's talk about real issues when it comes to diseases and when it comes to treating people that don't have the resources who should be treated in the right way. I think that's what it boils down to. You know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of things that happen and people are careless and diseases do spread. But let's talk about the reality and the root cause of these issues. And a lot of it is from a social perspective or socioeconomic perspective.
And Allyson, you know what I love? It is blending your perspective along with Adriel's point about the 24-hour news cycle and just the pressure to report, just the pressure. We know that all the news agencies right now are vying for attention and vying for an audience. So it's one of those things as well that they have to report something. So that is an issue, and I know, Sasha, coming from a news background, that is that pressure. You worked in a newsroom. You produced primetime news, and that's something that you guys have to deal with and have a news story, have a fresh angle, and continue to report on it.
Absolutely. I mean, you hear about the scare. It's happening over there, you report on it. Then it's getting closer to home, you report on it again. Then, it's close to home, but, not quite. You have to find someone locally whose auntie's cousin's sister may have possibly had it, and if you can get the story with them, then you've got the exclusive, and you can put that at the top of the show, and it's like this, like Adrian said, you're gonna die type of mentality.
So I need to tune in so I don't die.
Literally tonight, Ebola in Toronto,
Yeah, that's what Allyson was saying. We need real news. It's all just scare. Or you have that one person that comes on CNN in a while that says, "Guys, it's just relax. Nothing's happening." But there's no one being like, "These are the facts. This is this." Like, it's all like Ebola can spread like wildfire, and next thing you know, the whole world's gonna like. There's no real in between where someone's giving you realistic news.
So true. So true. So, Lori, we're on to our last story.
Yes, we are. I don't know if anyone watched, I think it was now a 4-part series. It started off as a 3-part series by Iyanla Vanzant, Fix My Life, where Mr. J. Williams, he has 34 kids by 17 different women. He was actually claiming, I believe, 45 of the kids, so, some kids that the women had out of, I guess, the relationship that he had. So it was a 3-part series, and it was talking about his ability to parent, his ability to be a father to these children, and I guess it was talking, really, the most recent update was that there was a kind of like a town hall that Iyanla had with regards to other men who had, multiple children with multiple different women. So wanted to open that discussion up. Is that something that's just culturalistically or acceptable in this day and age? Is it socially acceptable? Is it, is it a black thing? Is this happening in all different communities? Allyson, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that, our community is very tolerant. And when you look at it from the perspective that, we do have we've had a very maternal, when I say our community, I think about Caribbean people, I think about African American people, where, the mother has been the head of the household, right? More recently than anything else. And, the reality is that it's almost like it's okay when somebody has a child out of wedlock, right? We kind of accept, we embrace, everything's fine, we move on to the next. You can have a child with a neighbor, you can have a child with the person across the street, and the reality is that we really have to examine why this behavior is happening. We have to examine why we respond the way that we do, and we have to start saying that it's just not okay, right? It's just not okay for someone to go out and have 34 kids and not be held accountable for that. And it's not okay for our family members to, support that kind of behavior. And we also have taken a look at what's actually happening with the person and why he's doing what he's doing. And it's not only him, it's also the women that are engaged in these relationships. It's a two-way street, right? We have to accept dual responsibility. Accountability is key. It's not okay. It's not okay. Living in America, I see it, and I want to say that I see it in the African American community. I see it in the Hispanic community, but the Hispanic community has an opportunity to kind of bond, and the values of marriage and being in a relationship on the surface, I'm not saying that it's all the same, but on the surface, there seems to be something there that says, you know what, if this is going to occur, we're going to make sure that we work together as a family, and we have these family values that translate across the board. But there's something that's missing, and it's just not okay. It's just not okay.
What number would be an okay number in this situation? Is it the 34 that's wrong? Is it the 17 women? Like, what is it that would be okay?
It's the behavior. I don't think there's a number. It's the behavior, right? So I think the problem is, and I watched some of these episodes where these women knew about the other women, right? So there's an issue there, right? You're in a relationship, and it's okay for you to have another woman on the outside, and she has a kid. Let me accept him again because I really want his love, right? I really want him to be with me, and I'll have a child as well to make sure he stays with me. That's the issue that I have. If you have 20 kids, like, is it the Duggars within the family confines that they do? Mr. Duggar is going out there and he's working, and Mrs. Duggar is home and she's maintaining the family. I think you can have 100 kids if you're going to take care of them, but it's not okay for you to continuously go out and, for lack of a better word, breed and come back and, say it's the woman, or my mother didn't take care of me properly, or my father didn't take care of me properly. That's the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. When are you going to stop and look at yourself and say, there must be something really wrong with me?
I think he knows what type of women he's targeting too. Like, I mean, I couldn't take my eyes off that one mother. I don't know what number she is, but the one that just kept crying. You remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
That just kept crying, because he promised her. She was holding on to the promise of, we were going to work it out. And we were trying to see where it was going to go. It's going nowhere. Like, what do you mean where it's going to go? Like, I just don't understand that. And, I mean, like, episode after episode, she kept saying that same line. We were supposed to, and she kept challenging him, like, didn't you say to me just last week that we were going to work it out and we were going to see where this goes? Like, you have to get some self-esteem. She obviously didn't value herself. She had, I think, 4 kids of the 34 for him, and so, like, that's what really touched me. Is in even the town hall at the end that you mentioned, when everybody sort of came back and Iyanla was sort of exposing these other men, she was still there and she still had tears, she still had the tissue because she's not over it, and she's not over him. And so I think he kind of preyed upon women like that, where it was easier, because I don't know how in the heck number 17 came to be. Like, I don't know how. I know
how did he reach double digits? That's what I want to know. How did it get?
Right, and I hate the word, the term baby mama or baby mother, but, like, how do I know you have 16 other women before me with children for you?
You're okay with this.
You're okay with this.
And he's honest about it. Like, it's not like they were in the dark. So I absolutely agree with Allyson, where this whole healing journey was for him, and going back to his past and his his being abandoned by his father, whatever. Yeah, these women had a responsibility too, and they have to own it. They absolutely have to own it, because I don't think he raped any of them. I don't think he forced any of them into bed. These are all consensual, situations. And so I agreed with that, and with what Allyson said, and I also was really happy when I saw how his older children responded to him. Did you see how they were sort of, they were, they resented, and that's when it became real for me, because I'm like, if this show ended up with all the children like hugging, oh, Daddy, we forgive you, come back into our lives, and as long as you're going to step up to the plate, everything's going to be good. But the older children resisting was a slap in the face for him that he needed, because you can't just come in here and talk about, oh, this stems from my childhood, so this is why I did it to you guys. Come on, give Daddy a hug. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. These are real kids, they're teens now, young adults, and they're affected, and you need to know. And Iyanla and her dramatic way of bringing it out with the doll.
Oh, yeah, drama.
I'm not even going to touch on that, because she's a whole...
But you know what, though? I have to say, like, I, as a TV producer, I wasn't loving the way it was produced. I felt like it needed so much more. I wasn't feeling... the whole his parents and bringing in his parents and saying that he wasn't loved and that's why this man chose to be with it. I actually put more blame on this man than I do the women. I noticed that there was only a handful of women there was only, what, 5, 6, 7 women out of the 17 that were present. So I believe this man had a lot of gaming, a lot of lyricking that he was giving these women. I definitely feel like there is a dialogue that needs to be had. I feel like that scene where all the women, where Iyanla was like getting up and the doorbell was ringing and she's like, okay, you're number 2. Oh, okay, and you're number 5. I thought that was very embarrassing for all the women that were present in that. But I don't want to blame the women in that situation. They are to blame in some respect. But at the end of the day, this is one man. And it's like, you know, when someone always says, like, they have an issue with they have an issue with this person, they have an issue with that person. There's one common thread in this whole thing. And it's like, that's that man who decided to go out there and find all these different women and have sex with them and copulate with them and have kids with them. And as his older children said, you know what? He probably has more than the 34 that are biologically him. They're like, that number is up so much more. So I believe that the blame does lie in a man who goes out there and finds all those types of women, promises those things. So I'm not the one who would necessarily blame all of those women. I definitely think a lot of the responsibility, the majority of the responsibility, lies in that man. Because he's not a father, he's not a parent in respect. Maybe financially, I wasn't quite sure if they were getting financially, if they were all being financially, because he has like a good job in the music industry. But I think he had so much more that he has to deal with himself, and he himself has to see how much he's affected. I think it was like 70 people that were affected by his actions.
Oh, absolutely. I think at the same time, we also have not brought up one other issue that I think is important, and it's a hard one for us to swallow as a community, but it is something that is still real and it still affects the community because, I mean, the black family as a whole is on its way to repairing as far as family and recognizing what we need as a family. We as a community have been broken for so long. We are just we are still experiencing what was just recent history as far as separation, the separation of the black family in general. And we're talking, and I am bringing up slavery, and I know it's like some people cringe when they hear that, but this is the repercussions of that. This has come, and then this has affected our families over and over. Yes, people make choices, and I recognize that, and it's easy to have a bootstrappy attitude about that, but at the same time, we can't forget to bring that into play as far as how it has decimated what originally was a community, and how black people are now evolving from that and are growing out of it, and not everybody's out of it yet. Not everybody has a support. There's so many systemic issues that still need to be addressed in certain parts of our community. You talked about earlier, Allyson, with the classist issues, and I think that we see that more and more, especially with the established families and those who have, you know, either had that more of a family support in the sense that they wouldn't, you know, it's all one thing. I had my first son out of wedlock and whatnot, but it is something that we as a community still have to, I guess, look at and say that that is a part of it, and we're still repairing ourselves from it, not to excuse behavior, but it does play a factor or a role. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, Cher, let me speak to that, because I can tell you from the perspective of being a Canadian living in the States, I've seen such a different perspective. My white colleagues, they plan their children. If they can't afford their child, they're not having it. Mm-hmm. And when I say plan, because they know education costs at least $45,000 a year, they know private elementary school, kindergarten is about $12,000 a year, they plan their children. We don't do that, right? So these things happen, and it takes a village. Like, even if you look at in our Caribbean communities, you know, the mother may have been the head of the household per se, and the village helped raise that child, right? It wasn't just that single mother that was raising. Auntie helped you, grandma helped you. That's not the way it is here, right? So the reality is that he's making choices to not be accountable for not getting a vasectomy, not using condoms, and then we're buying into this whole piece as well where the women clearly have low self-esteem, and we all have issues. So I'm not sitting in judgment. I'm just saying in general, if you know a man has 17 other women or 20 kids, that should be a red flag. But the reality is that, you know, we don't plan, right? We have and we accept. And that's a cultural shift that needs to change. We need to take responsibility for creating that family. And, you know, I'm from a dual parent family, and I have 3 brothers, and none of them have kids out of wedlock because my father made it very clear that that's not going to happen because he knew what it felt like when his father had kids out of wedlock. And that's the messaging that's been lost. And that's something that we all have to rally together and speak of. I'm not judging if somebody has a child out of wedlock. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I just think, when do you start saying, when am I going to be responsible after 1, 2, 3, 15, 40, 55, 75 kids?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the reality is, let's get together and have a dialogue around this, and let's not be afraid to have these conversations with the people that we're partnering with.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone? I mean, that was pretty awesome. Like, this is something that we do have to continue to have a dialogue as we as a community repair ourselves, and we are way farther than we were, but there's still a lot of repairing that needs to happen as far as attitudes are concerned, as far as just how we work with one another and how we act as a community, and just even within our own family, how we support ourselves. Like, I mean, even from a parenting perspective, there's certain things that I'm not taking from my parents and bringing that into my family and stuff like that. And we continue to grow and educate ourselves on what's right, but we just can't ignore, like, I'm not excusing his behavior. I'm just speaking globally as far as our community is concerned, and there are still some systemic issues that have messed with many people psychologically as a result. So I'm just putting that out there.
You know what? So, Sharon, I think the one thing that is important as you bring this up is I think that, like, if you look at other communities, let's say the Jewish community, one thing that all the kids know about is they definitely know all about their history and, you know, the Holocaust, and it's something that they are reminded of all the times in their community. It's taught, they know their history, and I feel oftentimes, you know, when it comes to slavery, it's something like, oh, just get over it. And it's like, no, because, you know, we don't want history to repeat ourselves. You know, we need to be educated on what we're doing. I think it's valuable information that we acknowledge that, you know what, as you said, there might be systemic problems as a result of what's happened in the past. And we should every day remind ourselves of what has happened, and, you know, hopefully use that as a jumping board to move forward and make better decisions and make sure that that never repeats itself. So I think you're very valid in that.
And I'm not passing judgment. I mean, I just think it takes a certain kind of woman to get with a Mr. J. I'm sorry, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It takes for you to be in a certain place in life, and I just think in general, you know, I hear stories amongst friends and their friends, and I just think we've lowered our standards so much that it's frightening. You know, when I hear, you know, when I hear little remarks passed about, you know, things with you know, about guys and all, you know, like, oh, you know, he's gonna cheat, or you know, he's this, or you know, he's that, or whatever, and girls just kind of putting up with it. Like I actually heard a friend tell me the other day, point blank, like, oh, every man cheats, and every man is going to cheat on you. So you just have to learn to deal with it, because that's how we as women are going to have to just go through life. We're just going to have to know that every single guy that we date and we, you know, choose to sleep with or marry, they're going to cheat. So it's just a sacrifice that we're going to have to make as women. And I personally don't believe that. Like, I believe that there are men out there that are not going to do that to you once, you know, they're in the right relationship or what have you. But I just feel like our standards are just way lower, and I feel like this Mr. J could be a lot of other men out there, and it just needs to stop. It really does. It just needs to stop. I mean, it
does. It absolutely needs to stop.
And Mr. J is, like, I mean, the one thing that we're, you know, as much as what's being claimed is that these women have low self-esteem. At the end of the day, Mr. J has low self-esteem. For him to go out there and constantly be looking for love and looking for these types of relationship, he's not right within himself, and that can't be ignored, in my opinion. That he was looking for something, and, you know, fine if, you know, Iyanla wanted to bring in the perspective of, you know, he wasn't receiving the love from his parents and the stuff that they were going through, that they weren't showing him what he needed to. So, you know, he's out there and he's with a lot of different women, and he never had a great example of what a mother, father, you know, a unit family is supposed to mean. But I think at the same time, this is a man who has a lot of issues, and he has huge self-esteem problems for him to have said, let me go out there and do this with that many women, be irresponsible, promise women a whole bunch of different things. So as much as, you know, women can have self-esteem, I just feel like we don't know what those conversations are. You know, I felt like the show was just very washed over. You know, for definitely some of them, I believe that he could have been transparent, but, you know, I do not put it past a man who makes the decision to go and knowingly have sex with that many women, that he's not hiding some of his behavior as well.
I think it's changing the way people think. Because the part where she asked him, "Well, come you didn't get a vasectomy?" and he's like, "I didn't want to, I didn't, whatever." And it's like, the fact that that was a thought in his head that I don't want to, I don't need to, is again like a totally different problem, because it's changing the way people think. Like there's a part of the world that thinks like this guy's crazy, and they don't think it's all that bad. How we think it's like terrible that this happened. There's like a section of the community that says like, "Oh man, he's a player," or whatever. And that's like a part of the thinking where that thinking shouldn't exist. Like 100% of the people should look at this and think like, this guy, like, he shouldn't have done this. But there's a section of the community that at every level thinks that some part of this is okay, whether it's the girl side thinking like they should believe in these men, or the guy that thinks that sleeping with all these women is appropriate.
It's interesting. Essence magazine, they just posted a letter from one of his daughters, one of his eldest daughters, and where she says, "Dear Iyanla, thank you for fixing my father." What this woman said is, her name was Amina Mosley, and she said, you know, what you have done is not fix the problem, but only made him the poster child for all the Rolling Stones across the country. You've done a remarkable job at making him feel better about himself. The reality is that he has not been held accountable for his actions. And she goes on. So, anyhow.
It's nice to hear that other perspective. It's not nice in the sense that this is a horrible situation, but hearing that other perspective, because so many times, especially, you know, those who are interviewing, those who are in the position of power to share these stories, they spin it in one particular light. So it's just difficult and it's great to hear the effects that these stories being told on those who are immediately affected by not only the story being told, but by the story itself.
And the one thing that we haven't really addressed is, you know, we're talking about the man and we're talking about the women in the situation, but just talk about what he has now created in his children and the example that he has. Like, you know, this is something that is being carried on from his parents. If that's what it is, that it created this situation with him where he didn't feel right within himself in order to, you know, have the know, to know that he should not go out there and have children, 34 children with 17 different women, because he cannot physically, as you know, as Iyanla did, you know, do with that exercise with all the dolls, that he physically cannot have that kind of a relationship that so many people, like I'm sure each and every one of us have a great relationship, or, you know, could potentially have a good relationship with our parents, but we weren't, you know, in competing for our father or our mother's attention because we had 34 siblings. So we have to realize that, like, you know, imagine the self-esteem issues that, you know, these young women are going to have. And I mean, like, I know that one of his daughters already had a child out of wedlock, you know, with a partner or with a man. So just, I think that's also the bigger dialogue, is how are these women going, or these children going to continue the cycle along based on their experience of not having a dad that was present, that did not have a dad that was accountable, that did not have that kind of father figure, whether it was a man, I mean, whether it's the son or the daughter.
Very sad.
It is sad indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It is sad indeed. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Danny Mailing, who said she's enjoying the chat tonight. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you so much for everybody who's been joining in and getting out there on the interwebs, sharing their thoughts and joining our conversation. It's been an awesome time tonight. Lori, did you enjoy yourself?
I absolutely did.
Amazing panel.
I think so. I love the discussion. It wasn't like lighthearted stuff. We were getting into it. And I love that we had so many different perspectives. I'm really excited that we had Allyson on all the way from DC because it was something that we really wanted to have her on since last season. So, Allyson, we really appreciated your perspective on things, and we want to talk a little bit about what's going on with you, because we know that you have an exciting launch that's underway. So, before we leave, why don't you share with us what that's all about?
Well, I'll be launching my website, AllysonJB.com, on November 1st. And I am coaching and getting people to kind of really coaching from the heart. You know, I'm an executive leadership coach. I'm in HR, do some HR advising as well. But I'm so excited to talk about issues like this with women and about all the topics that we've discussed today. So I'm so excited. And I'm so grateful and thankful that you guys had me on the show. It's an awesome show.
Thank you so much. No, we're excited, and we're definitely we'll make sure to post your link when it goes live on our Facebook and stuff like that. And we really appreciate your perspective. Sasha, what are you dealing with now? I know that you have Simon Says. Any other projects on the work for you? What's going on?
Well, Simon Says is my baby right now. I'm putting a lot of focus into that. That's my new blog, and it's I'm just taking you guys on my journey with these kids of mine and this fast-paced career of mine, and just real life thoughts on what's going on. So definitely encourage you to join me in the discussion there at simons-says.com, and still remain, of course, a journalist in radio and television. I'm also inviting you to stay tuned to my Facebook and to my Twitter, where I may just have an exciting announcement coming up very soon.
Ooh, can't wait.
I know. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Adriel, let us know. Anything on the works for you? You're just chilling out with us, as always.
I'm going to be starting a radio show soon, so next couple of weeks. I'll let you guys know more about that, but radio show coming soon.
Awesome. Cher, anything going on with you before we end the night?
Well, I had last night, or actually today, oh my gosh, I can't even think anymore. You'd think I was drinking, all I had was water. But I kind of did one of those things where I did a 360, and I did a talk today at Partnership Advancing Youth Employment here in Toronto, and I did a talk about personal branding, and that was actually where I got my start. So it was really cool to see how, just having that discussion and see how I've grown from that start 5 years ago, talking and training and speaking about social media. That was like my first time on stage talking about social media. So yeah, things are moving in the right direction, and we just have to keep it going. Lori and I, we had a great time last week. For those of you who tuned in to our special edition last week, Thursday, we talked with a bunch of our new Blistum peeps, and this is a conference for anybody who's into blogging, the mommy bloggers, the daddy bloggers, sponsors. It was really awesome, so we're looking forward to what our next steps is with me and Lori. But yeah, just some exciting stuff down the works. I'm still working on a few things, and we'll see how that goes. And you, Lori?
No, I think it's definitely, I think, from everything that you guys are all saying, so from Allyson to Adriel to Sasha, to share some of the things that we're doing, I think one of the things is I realized, by going to that Blistum conference is anything is possible. So, you're planting the seeds, you're about to launch whatever you're doing, or you're in the launch phase, or you've just launched your baby. Think big, because I'm telling you, what I've seen some people do and what they've become is massive, by just being consistent and really pushing forward and looking for those opportunities, because you never know where it might take you. So that's pretty much it for me. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watching. Make sure you guys watch the episode that we had, Jizzy's story, that we are going to have up on the show. And of course, you can always watch us on the replay on buyblacks.com. Thank you so much for watching tonight's Hot Topics Live, or TalkBack Live with Lori and Cher, and thank you once again to all of our panelists, and thanks to all the watchers and everyone who tweeted and sent in messages to us. We really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Bye. And oops, let's see.